Hello there, everyone, and welcome to our AT&T Inner Circle webcast, Embrace the Power of And. My name is James Hilliard. Really glad to be on board as the moderator for today's event here. This event is being brought to you by the AT&T Business Circle. It's a growing community, and it's a community that we really want you to be a part of. Towards the end of the presentation, I'm going to share with you how you can get more involved. Right now on the site, we have some videos, some papers, documents, things that you can read through. But we're looking to grow it. We want you to be a part of that growth. And again, I'll share some more information about that later on. One of the things I'm also going to give you a little more detail on later, but I'll tease right now. We have 200 signed copies. They're not signed yet, but they'll be signed shortly, of the book Heed Your Call. And the author, David Howitt, is with us as our special guest here today. Glad to be with him. David is the CEO of the Meriwether Group, the founder of the team as well. Really what they see themselves as is a team of mentors that help entrepreneurs like yourself, that help small, medium-sized business employees and owners to really grow those businesses and go through that journey. And they're there with you along the way on all those ups and downs. And truthfully, you know, if you're already an entrepreneur, you're already running your own business, you know there are ups and downs. So we've got a great guest here today to share with us how to kind of heed your call, how to move through the journey of becoming a very successful and vibrant small, medium-sized business, really reach your potential as an entrepreneur. So we're glad to have David on board. One of the things that we'll be doing throughout the presentation is I will be keeping an eye on questions and comments that all of you are going to be submitting. You can put those into our webcast player. You can also use the hashtag out on Twitter, BizCircleLive. That's what we're using today, BizCircleLive. So we'll be feeding all of those questions and comments into me. The last half of our presentation today, that's really going to be driven by what you're interested in. So get the questions into us early and often. We're going to take the first 15 minutes to really put out a couple of ideas, really get the ideas flowing here today. And David, I thought the best thing to do, the book is Heed Your Call. So I wanted to start with, how did you heed your call? What was it? What's a little bit of the backstory?
James, thank you so much. That was a great introduction, and thanks to AT&T Inner Circle for being here in our home in Portland, Oregon. So my life, much like probably many of us today, was initially shaped by what I call my known world. My parents, my community, the teachers, the folks that were in my life that really sort of told me what I should or shouldn't do with my life, knowingly or unknowingly. I think many of us end up living our entire lives from that place of the known world. I know I did. So I went about living my life accordingly. And I went to college, I got my degree, went to law school, and ended up becoming a lawyer in a prestigious law firm here in Portland with the big mahogany desk, the assistant, the business card, all of the trappings, the 401k, etc. And everyone had told me, this is what you're supposed to do. You should now be happy. There was a growing voice inside of me, however, that was not. There was a voice that was saying, you feel disconnected. You feel like you're not in alignment or flow with what you should be doing in the world. There is something better, more for you, something that is really unique to you and to your purpose, David, in this world. But again, that other voice, that voice from the known world was saying, no, work is supposed to be hard. We're supposed to come home at the end of the day and feel exhausted and tired. And we're supposed to feel heavy and disconnected. That's just the nature of life. For me, that sort of internal conflict went on for some time until it sort of reached a crescendo where that quieter voice that maybe we often don't pay attention to started to really catch my attention.
Yeah, and I'm assuming a lot of folks that are joining us here today, that quieter voice probably led you to register for this event. Here's some of these insights. So again, hashtag BizCircleLive on Twitter. Share your comments. Meet up with other people as well. I mean, it's a great place to socialize and hear other ideas and comments. Also get your questions and comments into our webcast player so we can address those. But let's take the first 15 minutes. Great. Throw out some ideas to the audience here. Get them thinking a little bit, and then we'll continue on the conversation.
Great. Well, so at the Meriwether Group, James, we really believe fundamentally, and it's why we're here, why we set up this business, that the entrepreneur is the modern day hero. That the entrepreneur uniquely has the opportunity to create change, to change the way that we interact with each other, with our products, and with the services that we use in our lives. And we define entrepreneur pretty differently, I believe. We think the entrepreneur is anyone, big company, little company, your own business. It's anybody who looks at the world through a lens of where has the consumer been deprived of innovation? Where has the consumer been forced to adopt something that's tired and complacent? And how can I, as an entrepreneur, create disruption and potentially revolution or even evolution in that category? So we really are in service to that entrepreneur, and we want to provide that entrepreneur, as you so eloquently said in your introduction, with the tools they need on their journey. So I know today a lot of the folks that are tuning in are probably in their heart, and maybe in reality, entrepreneurs. People who want to come into the world and birth newness, who want to push possibilities, who feel an internal need to innovate, to be disruptive. And what Heed Your Call and the Meriwether Group is really fundamentally about is empowering that.
That makes sense. And there are a lot of people, and I like what you were saying about entrepreneurs. An entrepreneur doesn't have to be that solo business owner out there. They can be working for a large organization now. I would suggest probably a lot of our listeners and viewers are. But it's that spirit, it's that mentality, and a lot of the journey must be up here as well.
Really well said. And today I think we're seeing that AT&T has an entrepreneurial energy. This inner circle is about connecting entrepreneurialism within a large organization. I mean, let's be honest, AT&T was originally called American Telegraph and Telephone. But here we are with Inner Circle really trying to create a community for people who are forward-thinking, luminaries, thought leaders, folks who are going to push the envelope and really bring us into the future. So you're absolutely right. An entrepreneur can be someone who's tinkering in their garage to come up with the next newest cool mobile app or consumer brand, or it could be someone who's within a large organization who feels compelled to really bring a fresh perspective and fresh energy into what often can be a culture that is a bit tired.
Heeding one's call can be scary.
Very.
So talk about that and how people can listen to that inner voice and how they can really tune into that.
Fundamentally, one of the most challenging and difficult things to do, but I would say also critically important in one's life. In writing the book, Heed Your Call, I had an opportunity to interview and learn from a number of incredible people, ranging from folks who are on the pulpit in various religions, spiritual practices, philosophy, psychology, physics, and also I spoke with some end-of-life caregivers, folks who really help those as they're reaching the end of their lives. And the most common sort of regret that people had as they reached that time was, I did not live my life in alignment with who I am, with who my real soul, my internal desire wanted to be in the world. I subscribed to other people's ideas of what my life should be. And so I mailed it in. I lived inauthentically. I lived my life in alignment with other people's thoughts. That to me is really scary. So what is less scary is if we can actually come to a place in our life where we give ourselves the opportunity to start to listen. Maybe that means we play Angry Birds a little bit less, or we separate ourselves from social media for a few minutes, or push ourselves away from the various things we do in our lives that we do often to busy ourselves, and allow ourselves to start to listen a little bit to that inner voice that really wants an opportunity to tell us. When we do that, it is scary. Ego will chime in and say, wait a minute, you can't do this. You've got a mortgage. You've got kids in college. You have student loans, whatever it may be. And ego will chime up and say, if you do this, people are going to think you're crazy. You're going to be homeless. You're going to let your parents down. All of those people around you who have an expectation for who you are going to feel like you've kind of lost the plot. If you're able to breathe through that, and if you're able to really start to quiet yourself, and a term I use in the book, surrender and trust, that by putting yourself in alignment with those things, frankly, that you enjoy, that's when the mentors and guides show up. That's when the doors open, and that's when possibility really is at its highest. What I want to say here, James, that's important is these concepts, these outlines in the book are not just theories. I'm a trained attorney, and there's a big part of me, we'll get into the power of and a little later, that is really about left brain analytics, about real world business. I live in the world of commerce. So I wanted to really understand these constructs and these ideas from a place of reality, not just from a place of theory. So these stories and these constructs are based on my personal experience in the companies that we've started and grown and those businesses that we've been able to guide and help on their journeys. We have seen these used, heeding one's call, aligning oneself with one's purpose, taking a chance, stepping out of your comfort zone. And then some of the constructs we'll talk about, power of and others, used in commerce with huge success.
The idea of stepping out of your comfort zone, there are a lot of folks that are watching and they're saying, I know what my call is. Maybe it's to be a yogi somewhere. Maybe it's to start up a restaurant. But they realize that there is a journey, right?
Yes.
You can't just turn it, and that's where it sounds like it's surrendering to your wants and desires, but then you have to come up with a plan. You don't just throw everything out the door and then walk away and, hey, I'm going to go. You have to understand the feeling and then move into put a plan together. Am I on to something?
Extremely well put.
Okay.
And, we have to show up.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to fill your tank up with gas, set your alarm, you got to make sure there's money in your checking account. So yeah, there's a requirement on us to actually show up and bring ourselves, our whole selves into this. So it's not just okay, you know what, I'm going to form an intention around this dream I have, and I'm going to kind of set it out into the world, and then hocus pocus, it happens. It is co-creation. Okay, so we have a responsibility to step up and bring our best selves, but we also, I would say, have a responsibility to do that in a way that's in alignment with our deepest desires. So it is right? Unfortunately, we grow up in our educational systems and often in our homes being taught what I refer to as the tyranny of or, that we have to choose this sort of Hobbesian choice. I can either be a successful executive or business person, in which case I'll have a lot of money, I'll have a nice car, a big home, I'll belong to the right clubs, I'll take the right trips, but I'll likely have poor relationships, maybe my health won't be great, I won't be using my intuition or empathy, I won't feel a lot of happiness, frankly, but I'll be rich. Or, we're taught, or I'll be a poet, a designer, a creative, in which case I'll have a lot of happiness, strong relationships, I'll understand my place in the world, meaning, purpose will be a big part of my existence. I'll really feel my intuition and empathy and connected, but I'll be broke. I'll be sleeping on a futon, I'll have 10 roommates, I won't have a passport, or I will have lost it. And the truth is, James, that belief system, that or, is not going to get us there. It's not going to get us there as individuals, it's not going to get us there as business owners, and it's not going to get us there societally. What we need to do, I believe, is come together and be toggle between the two. Be a person who understands analytics and art. Be an individual who's focused on wisdom, a deeper wisdom, and knowledge, facts. It's when we integrate, it's when we bring these together that the magic really happens.
And what I'm hearing is a balance, is striking that good balance. I think on the personal side, it's pretty darn clear.
Yes.
But how does a business strike that balance? Because businesses, and even for our entrepreneurs out there, our small, medium-sized business viewers, could be saying, well, my business is this. It's not also and something else. It is just, how does a business, how does that type of entity find that type of balance? Okay,
let me give you two examples, because I think often examples speak in ways that are more profound than just sort of hypotheticals. So Apple Computer, it is the most valuable enterprise and most widely recognized brand in the history of commerce. And we ask ourselves why. I would submit that because on any given moment, I would challenge someone to tell me, is Apple Computer a technology company, or is it a beautiful consumer brand? Okay, the answer is it's both.
Absolutely.
It's and, right? So historically, the way the financial markets were set up, the way investors looked at businesses, the way that colleges and grad schools were set up was either I'm going to go work in the consumer packaged goods world, CPG world, or I'm going to go work in technology. That is a broken model, I believe. The future requires every consumer brand to think like a technology company and every technology to really build itself like a brand. And when you do, as Apple has, you have extreme value in the world. Another example, the company that my wife and I started, Oregon Chai, that was really the creative, amazing idea of my wife, who really sat back and said, the consumer has been deprived of innovation. If you like to drink tea, you're sort of relegated to a mug of hot water and a bag of chamomile Earl Grey. And that's not particularly fun or aspirational, especially as compared to frothy, foamy, latte type drinks with caramel and the like. And she, from a place of truth, from a place of real creative integrity, said, I want to bring this new kind of tea concept to the market. So her entire perspective was based on sort of right brain, artistry, creativity, purpose, meaning. But she looked at me and said, but I don't want to have to think about the other stuff. Mm-hmm. Supply chain, margin, operations, finance, logistics, permitting. And I said to her, I can step in and help there. So unknowingly, in our kind of mid-20s, we effectively brought together left and right brain, what historically has maybe been called yin and yang, female and male, east meets west. We brought these things together, and again, it became extremely powerful. So for those of you listening, for those of you who have businesses, it's really important to have the self-awareness and the ability to look and say, is my brand, is my business, am I a person who has the capacity and ability to bring both artistry and analytics? Can I shape the brand? Can I understand the consumer? And can I also make sure that we actually are driving best case business practices? If you're not, which is often the case, find people who are and attract them into your organization and empower them to augment you.
And that is what I was starting to churn through in my own mind. It's that self-awareness of knowing who you are, and if you're really that right-brained individual, find that left-brained partner.
Got it.
A team, and when you're putting any team together, maybe you've come together, organizations out there. I know there's someone watching that has a team together. They might go back and take inventory after watching today and realize that they're heavy loaded. 80% are right-brainers. Only 20% left, and they need to strike more of a balance.
Absolutely.
So that they can get past whatever downturn they might be in now, because that might be what's holding them back then, right? They don't have that balance mixture.
Absolutely, and you're right. It starts with the team and making sure you have that right balance, and then it also includes driving that thesis through every aspect of your business. Stopping and thinking about products and saying, let's spend some time on the why, not just the what. A lot of businesses move right to the what. You know, what is our product? And then they immediately start executing on delivering that into the market without really sitting long enough with the why. Why this product? What is the problem in the market we're trying to solve? Who is our consumer or consumers? And is this product relevant to them in a very significant way? Really, I see often through small, medium, and large businesses, too many resources placed on the what. When you're in the what stage, your degree of freedom, your ability to be innovative and disruptive is pretty small. You're executing. When you're in the why place, your degree of freedom is huge, and your ability to think innovatively and to really be a leader is high, high, high. So put more resources there. Interestingly, Google, I read recently, is hiring more masters of fine arts than they are masters of business. And what that tells me is that companies are starting to wake up to this knowledge that the creative process has a place in business. Again, and, not or. So we don't want to be a business that's purely based on artistry and brand and beauty and purpose and meaning, because those businesses fail all the time because they don't have a P&L, right, and they don't have, you know, the appropriate business planning tools. But we also don't want to be a business that's just focused on profit and linear left brain business analysis, because you're not going to really hit the mark with your consumer and understanding the why. Again, it's about integration.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, if you're on Twitter, you can be using the hashtag BizCircleLive, so we encourage you to do that. I've been seeing some of the questions and comments coming in via Twitter. You can also use our webcast player, so you can submit questions to us. I really want to turn to some of the questions that have come in here, and I think one of the first ones, and you may have alluded to it a little bit with what you and your wife did in terms of Oregon Chai, but can you walk us through the first year after you said mahogany desk, the lawyer, that's not going to be me in defining me anymore. What did you go through? You were now heeding your call. You were on this journey. What was that first year like? Was it all roses and champagne and bubbles? Was it despair and what did you go through?
So it's a great question, and I'm happy to answer it, and hopefully this will maybe make some of the folks who are with us today feel a little more okay with where they are. What I want to say is, and please bear with me in knowing that, again, this is really all grounded in business, but it is important, and we can learn from mythology and theory and psychology. So I want to quickly reference mythology. So Joseph Campbell, who was really the foremost authority on mythology, wrote a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And in that book, he said there was one myth that's been central to every geography, all time, all different belief systems, and he called that the hero's journey. The hero's journey has really been the basis for Star Wars, Avatar, Wizard of Oz, and the list goes on. It's very formulaic. And if people go to the Meriwether Group website, they can see a depiction of the hero's journey overlaid against the life of a business or entrepreneur. And it's one of those things where you look at and say, wow. So to answer your question specifically, you have this hero, of which we are all, and you live in the known world, which we've referenced. And for those of us that heed our call, surrender and trust, step out of our known world, we become like Dorothy, leaving Kansas, and suddenly we find ourselves in Oz. So to answer your question, how did that first year feel? Well, initially when you land in Oz, when you leave that big job at the law firm or Intel or Nike or whatever it may be to start to go manifest your deepest desire, initially it's pretty euphoric. You know, you remember, I'm sure most of us do, that when Dorothy landed in Oz, there was a big party and it was all colorful and she had left this sort of dirt farm in Kansas and it was exciting until there's a poof of green or red smoke and a witch appears. And this witch says, you know, your house has landed on my sister and I'm going to get you, my pretty. Well, Dorothy is a girl from Kansas with a little dog in a basket, and she's not particularly equipped to fight a witch. And that's where we find ourselves when we heed our call. Certainly it was the case for me. Suddenly you realize, oh my gosh, what have I done? I don't have the requisite skills, the know-how, the tools to really complete this journey. You know, what do I do now? Interestingly, James, it's at that point, and really only at that point, that the mentors and guides can show up. As they say in Buddhism, the teacher appears when the student is ready. And it's not until you've sort of been humbled, been kicked in the shins a little bit, and realized, oh my gosh, I don't know everything, that they can be there for you. So for Dorothy, the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Lion show up, and they're there to help her on her journey, her yellow brick road. And it was the same for us. We had some pretty tough stuff happen. You know, we did a production run using all of our cash to do that, to meet order demand, only to find out that the production run had failed. Really difficult things will happen. Campbell referred to this as the abyss. But what I want to tell you guys is the abyss is a necessary step that allow the mentors and guides to show up, and they will help provide you with the tools, what Campbell calls the tools of transformation. I've outlined 11 of them in Heed Your Call, 11 tools of transformation that we've used, other business owners have used successfully, to sort of make their way through their journey. So it's tough. There's going to be times where you feel like you made the wrong decision. Interday, you're going to have celebrations and, oh my gosh, what have I done? But always keep your eye on that North Star, that quiet voice inside that tells you that what you're doing is in alignment with yourself, and realize that you're going to have help along the way.
John is out in our audience. In fact, this question came in during registration, John, so I appreciate it. Was asking if there are any common strengths or challenges that folks that are considering leaving a big company now to go out on their own, are there any commonalities that you've seen now that those people possess, some type of trait, mentality?
Great question, John. Yes, a couple of the traits that we commonly see and that we believe are really important. The first is self-awareness. The ability to know yourself and to be honest about that, and to know your strengths, know your weaknesses, be able to understand where you are at your best and where you need help. That's really critical because that's going to allow you to focus on your highest and best and to attract the team or the people, guides and mentors you need to augment the areas where you're weak. Those people that are not self-aware often feel, hey, I got this. I can do it all. It's very rare that's the case. So self-awareness is critically important and something that we feel is great. Another trait, which I alluded to earlier, is the ability to be both creative and analytical, to sort of be able to toggle back and forth between those. And then the third and final one is, I find that the most successful entrepreneurs are people who are motivated not by money, but motivated by the need, literally the need to birth newness into the world, to create a better product, service, application for the consumer. Heather, with Oregon Chai, it was never about let's grow a company for a lot of money and sell it. Dave Dahl from Dave's Killer Breads, Dwayne from Stumptown Coffee, Paulette Cole at ABC Home, and the list goes on. The amazing companies we're able to guide and mentor. All of those founders and all of those individuals who really brought those businesses were primarily motivated by the internal need to create something new and better in the world. When you do that, the money follows you. When you chase the money, you tend to chase it.
Yeah. Yvonne is one individual that's joined us, and I've seen a couple other similar type questions. I hope I'm doing justice in grouping some of these together. The concept is, I want to start a new business. How do I advertise it? It seems like that's getting ahead of the game. It seems like it's focusing on doing something, the advertising aspect, that isn't ready yet. Now, I don't know, Yvonne, you might have a much more thought out plan on that, but I'm seeing enough of that as a trend, thinking that people are just saying, well, I can start my own business, I've got this, I have to advertise
Yes.
it. That doesn't sound like the right path.
Good insight. And I understand the question, Yvonne, and great insight. Way before you start ever telling the community, whether that's through traditional advertising, through social media, through PR, through events, before you activate that, you need to make sure a lot of other things are in place. Some of those are, firstly, do you have your product or service dialed in? Are you really, really clear that what it is you're offering to the market is totally in alignment with your consumer and consumers? If you're not, the worst thing you can do is go spend a lot of time and money on advertising, because effectively what you're doing is advertising something that you're not sure is actually going to resonate with the consumer. Second thing, let's presuppose that your product and or brand and or service is right for your consumer. You want to make sure operationally you've got the chops, that you have the supply chain, the sales network, the delivery system, the inventory management, the capital behind that to actually deliver. Again, I have seen too many times someone goes right out with advertising and marketing, and guess what? Be careful what you ask for. All of a sudden there's huge consumer demand, and the company actually doesn't have the internal wherewithal to deliver on it. Not going to help you. So step one, make sure your product, brand, or service is deeply and appropriately in alignment with your consumer or consumers. Step two, make sure you have the internal capacity, finances, operational chops, distribution, organizational structure, inventory management systems to meet demand. And then step three, thoughtfully build and execute against a marketing campaign. And on that, I'll say, the term, Yvonne used the term advertising. That's a component of marketing. What we like to talk about at the Meriwether Group is a fully integrated marketing strategy, where advertising is a piece, but so is events, grassroots, guerrilla marketing, a huge one that's very relevant for today, use of social media and technology tools. Make sure it's a fully integrated strategy.
It's got to be a lot easier today. You mentioned earlier, David said that if you're going to heed your call, you have to listen to your inner voice, listen to what's going on with you. We're also now talking about listening to your customers.
Yes.
A lot easier today to listen to those customers because of all the social channels we have. Was that the case when you started? How did you listen? And what are some tips to help our viewers listen to their audience?
Yeah. So we have an unprecedented ability right now in the world to deeply understand the world and our key consumers. Each individual who participates in any type of social media, whether that be that they have a Facebook site or a Twitter account or Instagram, they are themselves in a way a brand. They are trying to build their persona, their individual brand in a social world. As a result of that, we can learn deeply, cyclographically learn about our consumers. What do they read? What do they eat? What cars do they drive? What other brands do they utilize? Where do they exercise? What do they do when they exercise? Where do they travel? What magazines are they interested in? Getting into that cyclographic, deep dive nature of our consumer is available to us in ways it never was. And that can inform us really significantly as we build our brand and build our products and businesses. What you need to also do, and to the Oregon Chai piece, is use your intuition. Okay, again, it's and. Founders, birthers of businesses have an innate, my experience is, an innate understanding of their consumer, and they're often very clear on that. So it is equal parts intuition and sort of connected understanding of this business and its place in the world, and then marry that against analytics that are available to us through technology in ways that have never been before.
I want to go back to a question I saw flashing through our queue here about disruption, and you've mentioned the idea of disruptive, whether it's a service or technology before. Can you talk more about the questions asking for more businesses that are being disruptive, and do you need to go into business planning to be disruptive?
So I love the question, and the answer ultimately is yes. We believe you need to approach your business from a place of disruption. The world has enough products and services in it that it doesn't need just another same as item. And so we at the Meriwether Group keenly believe that you need to be disruptive. And let me explain what that means to us. We believe fundamentally that acting disruptively means either you are going to create a new category where one has never existed before. An example of that would be Oregon Chai. There was not a chai category. That was created through the launch of Oregon Chai, and subsequently many others followed, including Starbucks. Or more commonly, if it's not creating a new category, it's looking at a category that's tired, stale, where there's been a lack of innovation, and where their consumer has been deprived of newness or relevance, and coming in with something that is radically innovative and is really creating an evolution or revolution. So let me give you an example. One of our clients and a company that we have deep respect for is a company called Dave's Killer Breads. So if you think about bread, it's a huge category. And pun intended, the category has been stale. There just has not been a lot of evolution in the bread category. And along comes Dave's Killer Breads, and a product is introduced that is so incredibly different. It is healthy, it is organic, it has an amazing supply chain, and an incredible story around its nutritional and sort of sustainability values. But it's also irreverent, fun, it pushes the envelope on its branding, it's authentically based in the founder's story, which is a deep story of redemption, and it tastes good. What happens? You launch a company at the Portland Farmers Market, and within a very short period of time, it's north of $100 million in revenue. That's what happens when you come into a category that's stale, that needs evolution, and you create that. And that's really fundamentally what the Meriwether Group is about empowering.
Hashtag is BizCircleLive, so use that on Twitter to get your ideas in here. Also, you can use our webcast tool and get in more questions and comments. See a question coming across the screen here, and it's talking about tools to use to test your business model. So once a company has said, hey, this is the disruptive idea we have, and these are the customers, and we believe that these are the right customers, and we're in tune with them, how do you go out and test that, touch the water a little bit, make sure you're on that right track?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something you'll want to do. So there are a number of different resources and a different sort of methodologies for testing, right? And they range from focus groups, and literally that could be initially, as it was for us at Oregon Chai, bringing a bunch of friends and family over and having them test the product and asking them to be honest with you about their thoughts. As you get more sophisticated and as you grow, there are resources available, and we do this at the Meriwether Group, where you can actually sort of go out in a very systematic and thoughtful way and do consumer insight work, do focus group, quantitative and qualitative analysis, and learn about the consumer's response to your products. You can do beta tests, and I'm a big fan of soft launches. one thing that we once had to deal with a client was they had a beverage product, and they had received a national rollout order from 7-Eleven. So their initial reaction was, we just won the lottery. We're going to go from this little kind of regional company to a rollout nationally in one of the largest convenience stores, and I don't even remember how many doors it was, but it was in the thousands. And we cautioned them not to take the order. They're like, are you kidding me? How do you say no to a national rollout? And our response was, because you don't know that your product is going to sell well in Memphis or Tallahassee or Grand Rapids, Michigan, and you need to do a little more research before you bet the farm. Secondly, do you have the internal capacity to support this product? So when it hits the shelves all over the country, are you going to have grassroots marketing, sampling and demos? Are you going to have shelf talkers that allow the consumer to hear about your product? Otherwise, you're going to be lost in a sea of products, and there's a real possibility that you won't have sell-through. So our point is test, use analytics, use services that help you focus group, and when you feel good about it, then launch. Otherwise, you can celebrate sell-in, but you may lament the lack of sell-through.
A lot of questions I'm seeing come across have to do with funding. So a lot of you are looking to, where do we get some of this money? Do we bankroll it from our savings account? Do we go to a bank? Do we go to some type of venture capital? Is there a right path? Is there a typical path? Where all the little depends in the funding question?
So I'll answer that with I think it's my first sort of, caveat, or saying, here's the general path, but. So generally speaking, the way that companies get funded are somewhere along these lines, and it was true for us at Oregon Chai. You initially start with what we call bootstrapping. So this is, you digging into your own resources, as limited as they may be. I'm not suggesting this for everyone, but our experience was we maxed out credit cards. We scraped every dollar we could here and there to kind of get us to that first inflection point. Second inflection point for most is what is called a friends and family round of financing. Find that wealthy uncle or aunt, that neighbor that you knew that really always believed in you, that had some extra money lying around. And this could be in $5, $20, $10, $30,000 increments. And you go out and you try to sort of bring those people that are closest to you in to support you in your ideas. If you then move to the next step, it's going to put you into what is called the angel investment community. These are going to be individuals that are high net worth, that are active in wanting to invest in early stage businesses. Often not particularly thoughtful or disciplined in their investment strategy, but also difficult to get them because it sort of depends on, do they have a good golf game that day as to whether they're going to dig out their checkbook or not. If you graduate past that angel investor round, now you put yourself in the world of professional investors. And professional investors range from early stage venture investors all the way up to sort of large private equity groups and potentially strategics, those companies that might one day want to acquire you. These are going to be a world of sophisticated investors who are very thoughtful with their diligence, modeling, and often the structure of how they invest in a company. And I would really suggest that if and when you get to that place, you have a really smart advisor and guide along with you to help you through that process. The final thing I want to say is two comments. One, sometimes people want to run businesses that are just great, healthy lifestyle companies. They don't need to raise outside capital. They want to run a business that's there to really sustain them personally and financially, but maybe there's no desire to have this be a $100 million or $200 million company, and that's great. In those situations, you really don't want to have outside investors. And outside investors almost always, unless they're simply doing it as philanthropy, going to have an expectation on a return on investment, ROI. And if you're not sure that you really want to grow this thing for the purpose of selling it or repatriating money to an investor, don't bring them in.
That can have an impact on all of those folks out there that are the right-brained individual.
Absolutely.
If you don't want someone to say, I'm going to change your creativity, I'm going to train that can be difficult. A question that had come in through the queue here was an individual not generating a whole ton of revenue for his business, enough to keep the business up and running, pay the employees, but looking to jump to that next stage. Looks like he's got some technology being used in over 100 countries. I mean, that's great. It's a worldwide type companies. Looking to, though, attract the investor then, and I think it's going to, I've got another question which I'll piggyback here, but do companies often find themselves, they'll grow to that level and then they plateau?
Yeah.
And maybe it's going back to those early days when they were heeding their call, just knowing that they have to just kind of power through that because that next mentor might come along.
I think that's right. And we can't force the process. I mean, ultimately it is about the journey. And for those people who fundamentally want to move from, hey, I was in Kansas, I ended up in Oz, and I just want to jump to the Emerald City. I just want to sort of end up at what Joseph Campbell called my defining moment. My experience is they're not going to get there. That the journey is, in fact, often as important as the destination. And so keep working, keep your head down, stay focused. If you need to access capital, maybe look to have someone assist you with that process. There are people out there, investment bankers and advisors, that can help you with that. Try to find someone that really can be a guide as it relates to finding the capital and how and where and under what terms you should do that.
Some more questions coming in here about mentors. What if your idea, this concept you have that's so disruptive, is so new, there's really no one to mentor? Now, what I'm hearing in this question is, and what we've discussed so far about mentors, that mentor doesn't have to be an expert in your little widget area, but it's someone that knows how to navigate the waters, find the people for you.
You got it. That's the answer right there, James, is, when we launched Oregon Chai, there were no experts that we were aware of in the chai business.
Right.
But there were plenty of experts around tea, beverage, distribution, supply chain, financing, food, natural food channels of distribution. So for this individual who has this incredibly sort of thought-leading, right at the edge, leading technology, maybe there's no one out there who will get your technology as well as you do. But there will be people who know the business landscape that your technology plays into, and those people can be your mentors and guides.
Yeah. Some ideas coming across our question queue. How do you push through some of the doubt that comes up? Bianca, how do you stick to your vision of success? Let me go back to some early comments you made about putting down Candy Crush and putting down Netflix and centering yourself and taking some quiet time. What are things that you personally do?
Yeah.
What have you picked up from other teams that you've worked with that they do to recenter and push through?
Critically important question. Critically important. Ultimately, the founder, the folks who really have birthed the business, they are the DNA, and that DNA needs to stay intact. It is easy to drift. It is easy to have the business morph, and suddenly you look back and say, this doesn't bear any resemblance to what it is that I sought to create and bring into the world. Now, you need to be flexible, but never at the cost of that DNA. So tools we use, vision boards, mission, vision statements that are written, put down in nice ways, and that are driven through the entire organizational system of the company. Ensuring that all decisions always come back and are effectively balanced against that mission and vision statement, that DNA. Great story for those who understand Apple. And we might remember that Steve Jobs, the founder, at one point was told by the board of directors, hey, we don't need you here anymore. You're a hippie guy who had a cool idea around a brand and technology. We got this thing. Head out. What happened? They almost went bankrupt. So it's critically important that the business remain in alignment with that vision. If you find that your investors, your team, your board is starting to act in ways that are in opposite to that, you need to quickly act to curtail that. Because mission and vision drift is something that can be the death knell of any business.
Elizabeth is with us today, and we appreciate you being on board, Elizabeth. She has a business that is failing, right? Doesn't have money to start over somewhere else, is feeling like throwing in the towel, but says, I don't want to throw in the towel. That's tough.
It is.
And you've already made that choice. And I believe that is an area that has also held, and it maybe goes back to our conversation of fear a bit earlier. It held people from jumping out there, especially when the economy was really tough. The fear and getting through that. What would you advise? That's her simple question. What would you advise?
So a few comments. Firstly, because a business is failing does not mean the founder or the individual has failed. These are businesses, right? And so it doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean that your idea was a failure. Often, it's not the right time. My grandfather told me once that genius is nothing more than knowing what the collective consciousness wants 10 minutes before they know they want it. Maybe in this case, she's 20 minutes before they know they want it. And so there are a whole host of reasons why businesses may or may not work. My advice is to step back, look at the business, and ask yourself 3 questions. Am I having fun? Am I seeing results? And is this easy? And I don't mean easy like I don't have to show up, but is there ease? If the answer is no to those 3 questions, try to reconfigure the business. Try to look at different ways that you might go to market or bring this business into the world and step back in. If at that point you can't answer the 3 questions in the affirmative, it just may be that either you have the wrong product, the wrong brand, the wrong consumer in mind, or it's not the right time. And at that point, my advice is to move on, not to feel ego or emotion connecting you into something that isn't serving you or the world.
To tie a little bit of some of the ideas we've talked about, I had an opportunity to talk to several venture capitalists and was asking them about what do they look for in the people that come in their door. And they said, hey, we're more likely to take that entrepreneur that has tried 6 times,
Right.
failed once or twice, did okay, maybe hit only 1 home run, as opposed to the individual that is just coming in the door for the very first time. Yeah. And that leads to a question, again, I've seen it in here a couple of times. How do you get people to back an idea that doesn't have a proven success or track record
Right.
yet? You have some chai tea that you want to sell, but no one's buying it yet.
Right.
How do you get people?
Right.
That's a big concern for a lot of folks.
Yeah, and it is that sort of, what comes first? It's that adage of, is it the chicken or is it the egg? How do you deal with this? I need to show success, but in order to show success, I need capital. It's a chicken or egg thing. What I've found is it's okay to start small, and success can be, hey, I sold my product in to 1 store down the street, and they're doing okay with it. And now I'm going to go to 2 stores. Or I developed this new mobile app, and I'm getting it out there, and we had 10 downloads last week. Start incrementally. Show consumer adoption incrementally, and then go out to those capital sources that you can access at the various stages outlined previously and say, hey, I've proven this out in my hometown, which is what we did for Oregon Chai, but now we want to prove it out in the region. Okay, now I've proved it out in the region, we want to prove it out on the coast. Incremental steps, small steps. The other thing I want to make clear here is, when we say my business is failing or it isn't gaining traction, isn't succeeding, to me, that's not failure. Failure is I played it safe. I stayed in my known world. I didn't even take my shot. That's failure. Stepping out and trying to manifest something that is truly in alignment with yourself and then not having it work this time, that isn't failure. That's trying.
Yeah. Hashtag is BizCircleLive, so we encourage you to continue to tweet there. Also, you can continue to submit questions into our question queue here. Probably about 10 more minutes or so that we've got to spend with all of you, so we appreciate so far all the great questions. We're not going to get to all of them here, but we are doing is collecting these all. So we're going to try and find a way that we can continue to either answer these, push you towards certain blog posts, push you to part of the Business Circle community at AT&T, so that we might have some other resources for people. So that's one thing I want to make sure that we do. One of the questions that I saw that came in was really focused on this idea of balance between patience, which I think is what a lot of people, and it's one of the things I'm taking away, is you have to have that patience in your business. It's not just going to be an overnight success, right? There are no overnight successes.
No.
But there's a balance between patience and then being aggressive to grow the business.
Yes.
Does that come up? How do the teams that you work with navigate that balance of patience and being aggressive?
Yeah. So like most of my answers, I'm going to answer it sort of in 2 ways. The left brain response, which we need, because remember we're about power of and, is, hey, I have a 5-year plan. And that plan has articulated a growth strategy looked out over 5 years. Built behind that plan are analytics, focus groups, understanding of our capital needs, our supply chain, etc. So a fully thought through plan is really critical because it's going to tell you if you're on target and if you are growing at a rate that is appropriate with your plan and strategy. That's going to help with the patience element. Because someone might say, we need to be doubling our sales every month. And the CFO or COO would likely say, well, that'd be great, but doubling our sales every month is not something we actually can do because we don't have the internal capacity, financing, or bandwidth to manage that. And there should be this tension, this inherent tension between those that are part of the business that are always about push, 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 more, grow, 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 and those are the part of the business that are about plan, 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 make sure that we have the right infrastructure, the right capacity to meet growth and demand. Those two, I would say, factions or aspects of an organization need to work in what I will say is a healthy place of debate. And so there's constantly this push and pull, this yin or yang between growth at all costs and growth that is in alignment with a company's wherewithal or ability. There have been businesses that have failed as a result of success, that have literally blown up because they haven't had that other side saying, slow down, let's make sure we're growing at a rate that's sustainable. And they've actually blown themselves up because of too much success.
Yeah. I want to go back to a question I saw flashing by a little bit earlier about innovation. And the question was, hey, in the last hour, we've been talking about innovation here. Mm-hmm. Do a lot of these thoughts, David, have to do with product innovation or service innovation? Yeah. Is it both? What are the different approaches?
Yeah, so it's absolutely both. We have been talking a lot about product innovation, whether that be historically what would be called technology product or consumer packaged good. Again, arguing they're really now needing to be both. But it definitely extends to services. I mean, the Meriwether Group, the office we're sitting in, we're a service organization. We are about providing services to businesses that are on their journey. And we have worked really hard to be disruptive and innovative and forward-thinking in our service offerings. I think that's really important. I mean, there are enough, maybe too many, law firms. There are enough, maybe too many, CPAs. And people coming into the world just doing the same thing, the same way it's always been done on the service side, to me, isn't interesting. The future requires us to rethink how we put these services into the world. There are companies that are both service organizations and deliver product. AT&T is a great example of that. And these companies are learning that they need to be innovative across all platforms. And that's why we're sitting here today as part of Inner Circle.
Jason sent this question in, again, pre-registration. So Jason, we hope you're out there with us here today. A question about, and I see this, I'll give an example. I do some voiceover work. Mm-hmm. And I finally came up with a business reason to buy a tablet.
Right.
Because my studio was getting too hot with lights and paper was crinkling, and now I had something that could hold a script. Sure. So I came up with a business case. Jason wondering, how do you make the choices around investing in certain technologies to help grow the brand of your business, to help get out there and know who your customers are? How do you pick technologies?
Yeah, so we have more technology available to us as entrepreneurs and business owners than ever, and it's increasing every day. I like to think of technology as sort of the match that lights the entrepreneur's fuse. I mean, it really can be an incredibly impactful tool in the business world. I think more than ever, we need mentors and guides. We need people who can help us think through what the right technology tools are that can assist us in manifesting our business, because there are so many efficiencies, so many elegant and cool platforms, and a lot of them are not expensive. I mean, I believe AT&T hosts a ton of these platforms and tools that are available to entrepreneurs and business owners, and they're building out things like Inner Circle, which is going to have white papers and cool articles and interesting community, building a community that's going to be available to the folks we're talking with today to help them think through, hey, how did you build your company from 3 people to 11, then from 11 to 40, and what were the technology tools you used along the way? I know here at the Meriwether Group, we embrace a lot of these tools, and we have found our efficiency skyrocket. Each day we're kind of panning the world, and I have one person in particular on our staff that's really all about just understanding the various new applications, tools, and platforms that are available to us as a business to really help us become all that we can be in the world.
Because there are so many, I've seen even one of my strategic alliances, he got overwhelmed. He was using too many technologies.
Sure.
And there can be that sprawl of technology. So
Yes.
you have to pick and choose wisely as well, though.
You do. And I think it's important, again, I'm not a technologist. So I need to make sure I have someone around me who is, who can say, hey, David, the Meriwether Group could utilize this, and here's why. But you know what? This tool is a little too robust, or this is going to be something that's only tangentially going to be helpful. Not only do we look at it as it relates to our business, but we look at technology as it relates to our clients' businesses, the companies that we guide, mentor, and invest in. So yes, you want to make sure that you're embracing technology, but that you're not overwhelming yourself or bringing in tools or platforms that are really going to be superfluous to what your core mission is.
Yeah. I want to do a couple of little housekeeping items now, then we're going to come back to 2 questions, and that's probably going to wrap up our time for this hour. First off, we do want you to respond back to us and fill out surveys at the end. Usually that will pop up so you can get some, give us some feedback about the presentation. Doing so as well is going to get you in the running for 200 signed copies. So David's going to get some nice pens and start signing away. But we are going to have 200 copies of Heed Your Call that we're going to give away. So again, providing us that feedback information, we'll have all your information. We'll be able to send those out to you. The business circle, we've mentioned a couple times, att.com/bizcircle. I want you to, one, view the community. Understand what's on there now. There's several other videos and companies that have been spotlighted. There's also at the very top of the page a share your story link. Goes to a form that you can fill it out. Maybe we have an interview with you down the road. Maybe you're able to contribute a white paper, just some wonderful little nuggets of information to the community, but share with us. That's again with the idea of building a community so we can collectively learn from experts like David who have gone through here and are mentoring others, to folks like you that are just getting started. They're looking to be that next disruptive company out there. So again, it's att.com/bizcircle, and then look at the share your story at the top. I mentioned the book giveaway. BizCircle Live is the hashtag we've been using. Obviously, you can use that to continue on with folks. Last 2 questions. One of them I saw, and we'll probably just take about a minute or so for each, but it said, hey, how do you build a 5-year plan? Do 5-year plans count anymore these days?
So I think they do count as an internal barometer. Is what you look like in 5 years going to be exactly what you put in the plan? Unequivocally not. We don't know what's going to be, coming down the technology pipeline, the consumer pipeline a year from now, let alone 5. But it's still a necessary exercise. It'll help build the discipline around thinking about who you want to be in the future. As critical, or maybe more critical than the 5-year plan, remain nimble. Don't marry yourself to it in a left brain way where you say it must be this or else. It is a guidepost. It is something that helps you set a barometer, but ultimately great businesses are often defined by their ability to sort of react, change, and be nimble.
Absolutely. All right, last question is there a question that an entrepreneur, that a business that you're consulting with asks you, and then you, David, are able to say, they get it. They understand. So when you're in that original relationship building with them, they ask you one thing and you say, this person's going to succeed. Because I'm hoping a lot of folks that are watching are asking that question you're going to tell us right now.
Really, really thoughtful and good question. What comes to mind immediately is the individual, the business owner, the entrepreneur, the executive or leader who can say, how do we scale? How do we grow and continue to be an incredibly profitable growing company and never, ever lose sight of who we are, our authenticity, our disruptive nature, and our ability to continue to innovate? How can we hold those 2 things together? How can we be a heart-centered, authentic, disruptive, irreverent, pushing the envelope company and grow our business? Because often those things can come into conflict. Someone who recognizes that and wants to be is something that we really like.
All right, hey, good stuff, folks. Hope you enjoyed this hour. Heed your call. It is the book authored by David. We are having 200 signed copies that we'll be sending out to folks. So again, fill out our survey. We really encourage you as well to visit the AT&T Business Circle, att.com/bizcircle. Find that share your story link so you can be involved. And again, we're getting started building this community. We really want you to be a part of that. We hope you enjoyed being a part of this presentation. I know I did. David, thank you for your time. And with that, we are going to wrap things up on behalf of the entire AT&T Business Circle. My name is James Hilliard, and we do look forward to talking to you all down the road.